तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततत्कतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। So let's do this. Let's chant the last two verses of the 8th chapter, and then maybe the first four verses of the 8th chapter. So, because we're going to revise the 8th chapter as well. So, number 27 and 28, and then 1 through 4. Okay, six of them. So, number 27 of the 8th chapter. Naite sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tatsmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punyaphalam pratishtham atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanamupayati chadyam. We can even do the end. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Akshara Brahma Yogo Nama Ashtamodhyayaha. Now let's do the first four verses of the 8th chapter. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adibhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adidaivam Kim Uchyate Adiyagyam Katham Kotra Dehesmin Madhusudana Prayana Kale Cha Katham Gyeyosi Niyatatmapihi. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgitaha Adibhutam Ksharo Bhavaha Purushachadidaivatam Adiyagyo Hamevatra Dehe Deha Bhritam Vara. So let's finish the last two verses of the 4th of the 8th chapter, number 27 and 28. Naite sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Let me grab my other. other page to look at the. So he says, Hey Partha, hey Arjuna, having known these two paths, no yogi gets confused, not deluded. Therefore, be committed to this upasana at all times, meditation at all times. So this is what he's saying. So here this is a culmination of the last few verses where two options were given to us. Two paths were given to us. It's kind of like, they were in an election. Swami Paramarthananda really gave this very beautiful example. He says in an election, you have, say, two competing parties that have a different vision of how things should be done. So they all give you a pitch. You can listen to them and what they say and so on. And then you have to decide. And if you are intelligent, then you choose the path which appears the right one for you. If you don't have enough discrimination and intelligence, if you're bothered by some particular issues, you may choose the wrong path. So we can say that if you're the intelligent one, then you should choose, it should be obvious which path you are choosing. So here there are two paths given. One is a life of simply doing karma and following the rituals of Vedas. So we are not just talking about Vedic rituals here. If you are not, so there's, remember we had given the four different options. The first option is that you lead a life without any following of spirituality. There's one. The fourth one is where you become knowledgeable about what the truth about your life is, and you try to follow that study of the truth about yourself. The middle two are the one we are talking about in this 8th chapter. And the middle two are, one is a life of karma alone without upasana. And the second one is supplementing the karma with upasana. So upasana means a prayer, investigation, a love, and a commitment, a mental activity. So the first one is a physical activity alone. The second one is supplementing the physical activity with the mental activity. So these are the two middle paths that we are talking about here. And he says that those who are saying all you need to do is the physical part, going to temples, doing puja at home, observing all the various major events of the year, Vijayadashmi, Diwali, Holi, and you have the various different religious functions, doing them very religiously, getting your children involved, yourself. And then that's it. That's you think that you're done with it. This is one pitch that you should get. The other one is a investigation in terms of the meaning of what these rituals mean, and to be mentally devoted towards understanding. And this is what is called upasana. So the second one is not just doing the physical things, but also doing a prayerful mental activity is the second one. So here now we can go back to verse number 27. He says, "Hey Arjuna, now that you have heard the pitch from these two paths, I am sure you as the intelligent one will choose the one which is the second one, which is the upasana. Therefore be committed to." So the second line is Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yuktaha Bhava Arjuna. So here all these words sometimes are confusing. You cannot just look at the words in isolation. It has to be used in the context. And so here the word Yoga Yukta means upasana, because that is the topic that is being talked about. So Krishna says that, listen Arjuna, I have high regard for you. You have really approached me and you want to do the right thing. And so out of these two, there's more to be said because we have four different ones. But out of these two, I'm just telling you, choose the one with the upasana, not just pure ritualistic. From all the time, that's what your focus should be. So that is the meaning of the verse number 27. So now let's look at number 28. So here, okay, let's just go to number 28. We'll cover that later. Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. So he says, having known and practiced this, known and practice what? The path of upasana, this yogi goes beyond all that punya phala, means the results of your punya, which is promised with respect to the study of the Vedas, the performance of yajnas, the practice of austerities, and also the distribution of charity. He attains the supreme and primal abode. So he says that what you should do is not just confine yourself to Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tapassu, Daneshu. You go beyond that, because these four come under karma, not under upasana. And so one is Vedeshu. Vedeshu means here the chanting, because chanting is also very, very pleasant, and you give, and all of these, by the way, all these four things, Veda, Yajna, Dana and Tapaha, they give you a lot of punya. They give you a lot of good things. So no doubt about it. But you need to go beyond that. Why? Because what these four give you is the material results. And as we have seen, material results, even though they are pleasant for you, ultimately need to be rejected because they have a lot of defects. And the defects are, they are very limited. We've gone through all of this. So they are mixed up with dukkha. Whatever happens for a while is given up. And so you have the dukkha of giving up. Even while you are performing it, it is mixed up with dukkha. There's lots of problems in doing that. So if you're only confining in doing so, then you should be aware of the limitations. It doesn't mean that you don't do it. You need to supplement something more than that. So that's what he's mean by that atyeti. So atyeti means going beyond all that. So your Vedeshu here means just pure study and chanting. Knowing, knowledge. A lot of people, for example, they love to do Parayanam. Even the Bhagavad Gita, they can chant, they can understand from start to finish. It's a very beautiful thing, really. And then you ask somebody, well, that's good that you're doing it. Do you know the meanings of these? He says, no, I don't have the time to do that. I just enjoy the chanting of the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 15th chapter, and a lot of people actually do all of it. I saw a video clip the other day. There was this young girl in India. And I can't believe she's probably like 10 or 12 years old. And what a remarkable knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita she had. Do you know that she would be asked in the audience, you may have seen this, it was a remarkable thing. Somebody in the audience will give her just one partial shloka, and she would remember which part of the Gita that partial shloka comes from and start chanting from that point on. And person will say, very good, very good. Then next person says, how about this one? She does the same thing. What a remarkable thing compared to other children that, don't have this discipline to be able to study this and so on. But I hope that she takes the next step, which is to understand what the meaning of these verses are. There is a lot of, this is kind of like, Swami Tattvavidananda used to say that. It is like swimming in the ocean. There is some joy in it. Right on the surface, you are swimming, you're surfing, let's say surfing through the waves and doing paddle boating, whatever those kinds of things. And that's enjoyable, it's wonderful. I'm very happy that you did that. But compared to that, if you have someone who can go underneath the water and understand the tremendous life that lives in the ocean water, and to be able to explore it and to understand the diversity of aquatic life underneath the water, the depth of it, the science of the whole thing is much more than just a surfer. But similarly, understanding the meaning of the Vedas is the next step. But here it says Vedeshu. Vedeshu means just the study of the Vedas and knowing the Vedas by heart is Vedeshu. Yajneshu. Yajneshu means being able to do knowledge of the various yajna, of the various rituals, and really be devoted to it. Wonderful thing to do, but you need to do more than that. And then tapassu. Tapassu means the various fasts and other disciplines of the life. Daneshu, where you actually give charitable, you are doing charity work. Wonderful, wonderful. More than that. So he says, if you want to approach param sthanam cha adyam, if you want to approach the primal state of which does not change, is a big thing. Because if you are understanding just the surfing on the top, it may be a good surf, it may not be a good surf. It may last for a few minutes, may last for an hour or so, but then that's it. But if you are an expert in the whole ocean, which is always there, which is the Adyam. Adyam means one which is there even before the surf took place and will be there after the surfing goes. If you're interested in that, it's a completely different thing altogether. You need to go beyond all four of them. So that's what he was saying, that you need to really go all of that. And he says that if you want Ishvara, Nitya Ishvara, you don't want Nitya Ish means one who's the very essence of timelessness, in which the time doesn't touch, which is the reality. If you want to do that, then you are better off doing the Upasana. Because right now he's just talking about these two. We will talk about Jnanam some other place, but here just talking about these two. And so with that, the chapter finishes. And here Swami Paramarthananda makes a very interesting note. He says, that this chapter should be called Prayanakala Smaranam Yoga. Means remembering the Ishvara at the time of death. This is the main topic of this verse, of this chapter, as we will do in a minute when we revise it. But instead of that, he calls it Aksharam Brahma Yoga. And actually there is a good reason for it, because people don't want to keep on saying it. Prayana Kale Smarana means at the time of remembering at the time of death. That's not a very pleasant thought, because I don't want to read the Gita at the time of death, at the time of death. Swami Dayanand, that reminds me, Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, even the uttering of the word death should be avoided in very sacred events. He says, I don't understand that in the Western, in the Christian mythology, in the Christian use, when you get married, you say, I will be devoted to you in life and death. He says, why use the word death at the time of the marriage, which is a very sacred institution? Don't even utter it. So here also, Krishna in Vyasacharya ji, who is actually the author of the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't use the word Prayana Kale Smaranam, even though that is the main topic. Then what does he call it? Akshara Brahma Yoga. Why? Because in the very beginning of the chapter, the Akshara Brahma is started. So he says, let's just use that as the name of this chapter. So that's why Tat Sat Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Akshara Brahma Yogo Nama Ashto Adhyaya. So the 8th chapter is ended with that, and so will I, so will we. Having done so, let us do a quick review of the entire chapter. And with that, this class will be over. This was a short session of 14 sessions, 14 classes. And with that, the 8th chapter will be finished. And as you know, we will go into Kaivalya Upanishad from next week on. And hopefully, if Ishvara willing, once the Kaivalya is over, and if you are still interested, we will continue on with the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So we will do that. So with that, I'm very happy that we completed the 8th chapter. And with that, let us do a summary of the 8th chapter. Okay. Now, to do a summary of the 8th chapter, let us review the structure of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, as you know, and it is divided into can be divided into various different ones. Each chapter has a different topic to go to. But broadly speaking, it can be divided into 3 sections called Shatkam. Shatkam means 6 chapter of section consisting of 6 chapters. So Prathama Shatkam, Madhyama Shatkam, and Antima Shatkam. These 3. So at the moment, the 8th chapter falls in the middle of the second Shatkam, which is called Madhyama Shatkam. The first 6 chapters are highlighting karma, including the very meaning of karma. So not just rituals, but karma para, the one where the attitude is towards doing things even though it has karma yoga. Not just doing karma, but also the attitude of doing the karma. That is all the main topic of the first 6 chapters. So first 6 chapters are karma para. The second 6th chapter is Upasana para. Para means pertaining to, consisting of, primarily devoted to. That's what the word para means. So the middle one is Upasana. Karma, Upasana, and Jnanam. Last 6 is on Jnanam. That's one way to look at it. As you know, there is also another way to look at it, which is the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. That you and that means Ishvara, are essentially one and the same. So the Tattvamasi in first 6th chapter is Tvam-pada Vachya. Who is you? The middle one is Tatpada Vachya. Is what is the form of Ishvara. And the third one is the identity between them. That's another way to look at the 3 sections of the Bhagavad Gita. But in the essence of the 8th chapter, it is better to look at as karma, upasana, and jnana. So that being the case, the middle section is upasana para. And so that's why in the last section of the Bhagavad Gita, the main goal of the teaching is to highlight the importance of upasana, not just physical karma, but also mental upasana. And mental upasana means what? Doesn't mean that any kind of a thinking is mental thinking. This is why education is so important, because if one is not educated, you cannot think along those lines. You just do some simple things. You have, supposing a person, I'm not putting anyone down, but supposing you have a laborer who has barely gone through, in the Western, there's education is compulsory up to high school, but in the East, there's not even that. So supposing you have a villager or a laborer who never went to school. And so, but you strong person, he can do some physical labor, he can dig ditches and so on and so forth. He's very helpful, all that is good. But in terms of understanding the nuances of life, you don't have the education to do so. It requires teaching, education, knowledge, languages, grammar, to be able to get into some ideas. So does it mean any kind of a thinker can be an upasaka? Because we said earlier that it is mental vyapara. So, upasana is defined as manasa vyapara. Manasa vyapara. Manasa vyapara means one which is the subject of thinking, which consists of thinking, not doing. This is the definition of upasana. So that means anybody who's a thinker. Now we have a lot of educated people, and some who are busy in making money, some who are in politics, all of that. Are they then we can say they are all upasakas? No. Cannot say that, because the word upasaka, even though it is manasa vyapara, is called Saguna Brahma Manasa Vyapara. So now the definition is complete. It is called Saguna Brahma, means a formful form of Brahma, which is Ishvara. Ishvara is the formful form of Brahma. And that Manasa Vyapara is called Upasana. So the middle section is Upasana Para. And so the 8th chapter falling in the middle 6 chapters is also Upasana Para. So this we should see. So only a thinking, education, knowledge and ability to explore Ishvara, the very creator of the universe, the relationship between the universe and the creator and myself, that thinking is called upasana. Not just any thinking. It should be Ishvara Para. Saguna Brahma Manasa Vyapara, Vishaya. Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyapara. Whose subject matter, Vishaya means subject matter, whose subject matter is Saguna Brahma. That Manasa Vyapara is called Upasana. Okay, so that being the case, now the Upasana, this is the 8th chapter, is one of two types. One is Sakama Upasana, and the second is called Nishkama Upasana. So we are now revising. This is the whole chapter. We have done all this, but I'm just condensing it into the next half hour to 45 minutes. So we have a complete review of the 8th chapter. So we've seen that upasanas are of one of two types. One is called Sakama and the other one is called Nishkama. What is the difference? Sakama means, kama means desire. Desire for specific things is called kama. And so sakama means kamaha saha vartate iti. The one which exists along with desires is called sakama. Sakama means a prayerful attitude for material progress. It's called sakama. And the material progress could be either in this world or later on in the next life. Could be either one of them. Ihaloka param, paraloka param. Both of them are called sakama. Ihaloka param means that you want something in this life. I want, please help me in making more money. Or please help me with a child. Here Swami Maheshanji makes a very interesting point. He says, we don't understand this, but if you look at the difference between getting a son or a daughter as a child, putra or putri. Very beautiful point that he brought up, really. Very interesting. He says if you look at the difference between a son or a daughter, he says we do not understand that the son, putra, is beneficial to us in this life. Beneficial, no doubt about it. Because in general speaking, men make more money than they get more. And this is the problem in India. Nobody wants daughter because the daughter, they don't educate the daughter. And so the money is made by men, not women. I'm just exaggerating, but just comparatively speaking. So daughter has to be married away, you have to give some dowry and so on and so forth. So people don't, this is a huge problem. There's the killing of fetus, if you find out it's in Punjab and Haryana, and this is a huge problem. Even in China, I understand this is the thing. So anyway, people don't want daughters, they want son. Anyway, I don't want to get too carried away, but just to give you an idea what Swami Maheshanji is saying. He says, look at this. A putra is more beneficial to you in this life. Okay? A putri, a daughter, is more beneficial to you in your future lives. How? How is that? Because they say, you remember the last one, Daneshu. So we saw Yajnesh, we saw what did we say? That we said Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tapassu, Daneshu. If you look at charity, the biggest charity considered is what is called Kanyadanam. To give your daughter to another family is considered to be the greatest charity you can think of. Because all the work that you have done to develop the personality of this girl, who now becomes hopefully the heart of a brand new family, this is just amazing. We don't realize it. This is the traditional family where she really establishes the very culture of the family. She's the one who bears children. She's not just busy doing a job here and there. She's much more than that. And really just ensures, this is a great dana. And he says, this will give you have a daughter, your next few lives are going to be much better. And I think, for those of us that have friends that have daughters, even in this life, the daughters take better care of you in your old age than the sons do. I know that because we compare notes with our friends and so on. We are lucky to have good friends or good sons ourselves. But in general, the daughter is better. Anyway, going back to I was just on the side, going back to the main thing. So, upasana is one of two kinds, sakama upasana and nishkama upasana. So, sakama upasana means the one where you are dedicated to results either in this life or next life, specific results, material results. Nishkama upasana is a different one where you have now grown to a point, as we have seen that very appropriate example. Sakama upasana means that you are injured and you want better and better ways of having some kind of an artificial aid to help. Nishkama upasana is I want to be a healthy person. I don't need to lean to anything. I want just complete freedom. That is the real spiritual growth. So these are the two types of upasanas that we have. Okay? So now the nishkama. So now let us look at, so sakama upasana is the inferior kind of upasana. And you can even say that that is associated with karma, because you also do some upasana along with going to the temple and so on, but it is all for specific things. Now if you go to nishkama upasana, that can be subdivided into two parts. One is in nishkama upasana that you do all your life. The other one is a nishkama upasana which you do until you switch over to knowledge, jnana. And to me, the following example is appropriate here. In nishkama upasana is learning to swim. And a dedicated learning to swim. Swimming is apparently not that hard, although I can't swim. I used to get a lot of problems with my sinuses and so on. And I was never able to, and I was asthmatic. So I was never able to really swim. I can swim maybe 20 feet maybe, just to save my life. But nothing more than that. So, but generally speaking, swimming can be learned relatively straightforwardly. But, so the nishkama upasana is of two types. One is where you're always learning. The other one is you switch over to knowledge. Your learning fructifies into an understanding of who you are, and it becomes jnana. And so the nishkama upasana has also a beginning stage and a later stage. A beginning stage is where you are dedicated, but throughout the life you have not really gone over to knowledge. And the second stage is where through your nishkama upasana you meet the right guru. You get introduced to the main topic. Now your nishkama upasana takes a new form, which is study, which is jnana. And if you're not able to reach that, either through the fact that you are never You're never that mature, or that you were mature but the right person did not come into your life. It's very important for that to happen. For whatever reason, you can continue on with the first type of Nishkama Upasana. But the second one transforms into the study of Vedanta. And the difference is this. I'm just giving you a general, in fact, I'm kind of like going back and forth, but just giving you an overall feeling for what the 8th chapter is. So in the 8th chapter, the difference is, if you are the first type of Nishkama Upasana, in fact, I tell you what, now out of these 4, let's forget about the person who does not even look into the spiritual aspects of it. So now we have 3 of them left, right? What are those? One is Sakama Upasaka, one is Nishkama Upasaka, and the third one is a student, Jnani. Okay? Sakama Upasana, along with the rituals, will take you to the darker paths of the future. Swarga is called darker because they are limited. You go there and you exhaust your punya. And what punya did you exhaust? Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tapassu, Daneshu. All those punyas you exhaust. Like making a lot of money and going to a sea resort like Hawaii and spending a month, and your money is exhausted, now you have to come back. This is the darker of the path which was talked about. The brighter of the path is where you have Nishkama Upasana, which has not fructified into Jnanam. So in the Nishkama Upasana, you now are devoted to Ishvara Smaranam until the last part of your life. And if that happens, then you go to the bright paths where there is no coming back. You go from one section to the other, eventually going to Brahmaloka. And there also the teaching has to take place. But you have a much better chance of really reaching the end because it is assured. You are also completely well and the teacher is also so much better and you are done. But it takes a krama mukti to take place. The last one, the third one, is where hopefully the transformation of your Nishkama Upasana takes the form of study and knowledge, and if you are mature enough, you get freedom in this life itself. This is what is called Sadhya Mukti. So in the middle section of the 6 chapters, the middle section of the Gita, the 6 chapters from 7th through the 12th, Sadhya Mukti is talked about. Sadhya Mukti means Jnanam, right now. You study for it, it's a fact, and you just observe the fact as best as you can. That is what is talked about. Number 7, number 9, 10, 11, and 12. Number 8 is an exception. Because there it says, in case you don't have the ability to do so, because knowledge means eligibility. Knowledge is the same for everybody, but the eligibility is different for different people. So if you do not have the eligibility, then out of the other choices, you should do Nishkama Upasana, not Sakama Upasana. Hopefully you will. These are all gradations of our maturity. So this is what is talked about in the 8th chapter of the Gita. So now we can say that the 8th chapter begins with, just to give you a very quick idea, we're almost towards the end of it. In the first few verses, there are some topics that were brought up by Krishna in the end of the 7th chapter. So he had given about 7 topics. And the first 6 topics are, in terms of Adhyatma Vidya. So if you look at what we studied, number 1 through, so there it says these were questions by Arjuna, because Krishna had already planted the seeds of this at the end of the 7th chapter. And so now, being prompted by Krishna, Arjuna takes up those questions and he says, I'm in the 8th chapter. Kim tat brahma, kim adhyatmam, kim karma purushottama, adibhutam cha kim proktam, adidaivam kim uchyate, adiyagyam katam ko atra dehe asmin madhusudana. So these are the 6 things that he asked about. What is Brahma? What is Adhyatmam? What is Karma? What is Adibhutam? What is Adidaivam and Adiyagyam? These are the 6 things. And the 7th one was Prayana Kalecha Katham Gyeyosi. At the time of death, how will I know you? These are the 7 questions that he had. So in the first few verses, the answers given by Krishna were about Brahman. So Brahman is the one where it is the only vastu in the world which is not governed by the Jagat. Jagat includes time, it includes space, includes limitations, because it is beyond time, beyond space, beyond various limitations. It is the very essence of everything. It always is. That Brahma, Aksharam Brahma. Akshara means, Sharam means one which changes, which decays. Achyutam Brahma. One there has no চ্যুতি to it, there is no decay to it, no change to it. Always there. That is the self. That is the Brahman. And so that is, he talks about Kim Brahma, he says that is the Brahma. Adhyatmam. Adhyatmam means the one which is the same Brahman as experienced by a human being or any being, but here a human being, as me, the consciousness, the conscious one. It's called Adhyatmam. It is the same as Brahman, but here it is in the form of an individual experience that I am a conscious one. It's called Adhyatmam. Then Adibhutam. Adibhutam means that one which is present in all of the physical aspects of the world. The Akasha, the Vayu, the chairs, tables, people, and so on. It's called Adibhutam. Adidaivam. Adidaiva means that the factors which you do not see, which are behind. So the advent of earthquakes and hurricanes and good things and bad things, all done by devatas, which are beyond your local understanding, but still there. It's called Avidaita. Adiyagyam. Adiyagyam is here is Ishvara as a karma phaladata, the one who is there in the various rituals, who definitely gives you whatever you want if you do it properly. It's called Adiyajnam. Then, so these are the 6 things. Then the 7th one was Prayana Kale Katham Geyosi, that at the time of my death of the body, there is no death of the human being, because when you talk about the death, you're talking about what death are you talking about? Which death are you talking about? Swami Maheshananji has, in his commentary on the Rudram, made a very beautiful observation. He says, when I say beautiful, that means very important. He says, if Shastra believes that if you commit suicide, you have done a papa, you have done a thing which is not good, because the body was given by Ishvara to you, and now you're rejecting Ishvara and saying, no, I don't want to go through with this. So you are really insulting Ishvara by committing suicide. It's not the right thing to do, and of course the society suffers, your family suffers, you suffer, everybody suffers. So suicide is not a good thing. But compared to a suicide which only affects the body, not knowing the Atma is much worse. Just imagine that. So we say, what? Not knowing the Atma is worse? Yes. In the case of suicide, you insult Ishvara once in your life. But in not knowing the Atma, you are insulting Ishvara every second. Saying, no, that's not me. You're not me. No, that's not. Ishvara says, really? Don't you see this very clearly? No, I don't believe in it. This is not true. And even if you are introduced to it, you say, I don't understand it. Hey, what is there not to understand? It's very clear. No, it's very difficult. Very difficult. I cannot do this. That also is insulting. It's like telling somebody saying, hey, I see your keys. I see your glasses, like you put the glasses on top of your head. He says, yes, I know it. It's right there. And he said, no, it cannot be there. I'm looking for my glasses. He said, no, I see it there. You just be quiet. I'm not listening to you. I'm looking for glasses. This is exactly what the situation is. How insulted would the person be? So he says that not knowing the Atma, not understanding the glory of the Atma is much worse of a suicide than the physical suicide of killing your body. Anyway, that he was talking about it. So, really understanding the Atma, understanding the Ishvara, really the same basically, then is really the one you should be doing. Anyway, so he talks about that. So now he says, so the whole topic came up was the time of death. Which death are you talking about? At the time of the death of the body, then what should you do? So then in the fifth, so all these 6 topics were talked about in verses number 1 through 4, which we chanted. That's why I chanted those. Then from the 5th to the 14th verse, He talks about the importance and process of remembering God at the time of death. Because with the premise that your last thoughts before you leave this body determines what your next life will be. Why? Because that is the very important part of your life, where everything else that you have been associated with is now going to be taken away from you. It's going to be dismembered. Your wife, your husband, your children, your friends, everything will be gone. And at that time, who you remember and what you remember will leave you with a lasting impression of where you are going next. And Krishna says, I suggest to you, for all your goodness, please remember your maker, your creator, which is Ishvara. He'll take care of you. And understand it. Okay, fine, I'll do that at the end, because right now I'm just too busy. I've got these things to do and so on and so forth. And when I'm very, very sick, then I'll remember Ishvara. So then I've fulfilled all your requirements. At the last minute, I will remember you, and then we are done. Krishna says, who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? Is this really reasonable? Can you, which you've never even given me a second thought in the rest of your life, suddenly go to that? It's not going to happen. You're going to be crying, and your children are crying, your spouse is crying, everybody is wailing, and then you leave. So you better, if you want to remember me, start early and slowly build up. Give me a space in your heart. Like right now, your heart, you have some spaces. Supposing you have 3 children. So you have 30%, 30%, 30% for them. And you have only 10% for your spouse. So anyway, that's done. 4 people. Where is the space for Ishvara? Oh, Ishvara, I don't know. I'm not sure that he exists and so on. But these are people who are really helping me. What happens? And so Ishvara says, please make a space for me in your heart early. And as you go towards the end of your life, think about it. Your children and spouse have given you good support. You should be happy about it. Give them a goodbye. Should you not now take the support of the next person who is going to carry you? Are you not thinking about it? Should you not expect it? Don't you work towards it? You must do it. So the verses number 5th to the 14th go through all these discussions and suggestions on remembering God, because essentially you have one of 2 paths that you can go through. Either you go through Atma, Brahman, Ishvara, or Anatma, Anishvara, Jagat. These are the 2 things. So understand the limitations of each one of them, glory of each one of them, and make the right choice. This is what he's saying. So anyway, the 5th to the 14th chapter, he goes through that. Then In number 15 to 22nd of verses of the 8th chapter, he makes it clear. These two choices, either Ishvara or Anishvara. Ishvara, God, symbolizes immortality. And Anishvara is a risky proposal, subject to time and space, and may you enjoy their presence, but don't really depend on them for your security. Cannot do that. Enjoy them by all means. Don't turn away from them. So the Arthakama and Dharma by all means. But for moksha, which is the serious stuff, where you have to look for your own security, they are not going to give it to you. Swami Paramarthananda had a very beautiful example. He visualized this. I've seen he uses this example quite often. He says, picture a kind of a chair which is meant for show. Sometimes, I have not seen that very often, but it's very possible that you have a chair which is made up of some light material like paper mache or straw, and just for in some kind of a display window, and they want to show the right kind of fabric that it has. So you have some very beautiful fabrics that it is wrapped in, and they put some flowers in it. It looks very beautiful, and you have to, this is a smaller scale one, maybe only where children can sit on it, but the real one is inside somewhere which it is only showing to. Swami Paramatmananda says that this is a beautiful chair. Enjoy it and just find out how much the real one costs and all of that. But don't sit on it, for heaven's sake, because it will break down. Similarly, he says, enjoy the Jagat. It is really a fair, a tamasha in Hindi, which means that it's a beautiful thing to visit your county fair. And there's ice creams and there's some games to be played and so on. Enjoy it. But do not stake your future in it. Don't get lost in it. It has some enjoyment potential for you. It was given by Ishvara. Enjoy it. But really speaking, be serious about where you're going and what your security is. So this is what he's talking about in number 15 to 22. This is the topic. Then in number 23 to 27, which we just finished, he talks about the two kind of paths that you should be aware of. If you're not able to go to Jnanam itself, then be aware of the fact that these two paths will lead you to, in one case, coming back, which is the Swargalokas, and the other one is through Upasana, where you can go to Brahmaloka, not to come back. You'll be taken care of. So the 8th chapter, so this is what is called Shukla Gati and Krishna Gati. So Krishna Gati is the dark path and Shukla Gati is the bright path. And this was talked about at the very end of the 8th chapter. So in summary, the 8th chapter is an exception to the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. It is kindly given to those who feel that, I'm studying and I'm doing all of this, I'm doing the best I can. But what if my life ends before I finish the job? What happens to me? And so this is what is called Krama Mukti as opposed to Sadhya Mukti. And it's a sort of an exception. The rest of the 17 chapters are for Sadhya Mukti. Well, not all 17. The first chapter is just a basis, so all the 16 chapters. But the 8th chapter is an exception because it talks about what if I am not able to finish this job in this life. What happens to me? What should I do preparing for it just in case? That is the essence of the 8th chapter. With that, we take leave, and we will hopefully meet again in the 9th chapter sometime in the future. God knows, we'll have to see. But with that, I take your leave with a small prayer. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So Keshav's question, दानों में दान, कन्यादान, दानों में महादान, ज्ञानदान, जो आप कह रहे हैं. Yes, it's true. So Kanyadan is a physical act, a mental act also, but Jnanadan is to yourself, and that is far-reaching, more difficult but far-reaching. And that's what we should, there's no reason why we cannot do both. If you educate a daughter in your own home to be a wonderful person, and then she helps us start a new family, that is a very beautiful thing to do. And then in your own study, if you continue to dedicate yourself towards helping yourself and other students and so on, that is also a very beautiful thing to do. So both are important. Barbara, what is the view on assisted dying? So I'm not sure that there is something that I find in the spiritual teachings that would give us a very clear guidance on this. But I think that each one of us can, with the help of the wisdom that we can gain from the study of Vedanta, can make up our minds on what should be done. And I'm also getting old, and that's a topic for myself also. I'm actually going through and redoing our wills and so on and so forth. So my view of that is that there is no necessity for unnecessary suffering, which is done for a variety of reasons. If you if you have a terminal illness, then there is no reason to have a respirator, which will unnecessarily prolong the life. Perhaps one could be used as a trial in the beginning to see if it is not terminal, it could be extended, that's okay. And also to make sure that people around you are able to give their love to you and you're not just disappearing without saying goodbye to them. If there is some assisted living for that purpose, it's okay. So all assisted living, I think, is good, except for when it is assisted dying, where unnecessary suffering to you and to others is not needed. And so I would be very happy to recommend to my family and doctors, for myself, that this is what I would like to do. It is up to everybody else on what they do. The Shastra does not really touch this topic, at least not I'm aware of. We can ask some of the Swamis that have much more extensive knowledge than I do, but at least my stage, this is where I am at. That assisted dying, if it is very clear, is good to do. That's, Barbara, that's what I would think. Satish Jalota says, coincidentally, I recited chapter 8 verses when it was assured by doctors my relative was dying, there was no recourse, and they had put him on morphine. Yeah, absolutely. And I did the same thing with a friend of mine who had recommended to his son that if he's very close to death, that they take my help. And what I had done was I went to the hospital, and he was already on the respirator and really struggling, and his sons and daughters were not able to really make a decision. So they, on the recommendation of their dad, had approached me. So I went to the Stanford Hospital, and I was able to talk to my friend, and he says, your days are numbered. He says, yes, I do know that. So I said, would you like for the respirator to be disconnected? He said, yes, absolutely. So I said goodbye to him, and I also chanted the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita for them. Then I came out and I told the children that I've already spoken to him. He's also asking for the respirator to be disconnected. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So they said, okay, thank you, Vijay Uncle. We appreciate your assistance. We'll see. So interestingly enough, I came back from the hospital, and by the time I came home, I was told that he had passed away. And so I think the respirator was still there. They did not disconnect it, but at the end was very close. So anyway. Good, Satish. I'm happy you did that. Yeah, I think so. I think chanting of the 8th chapter and to explain the significance of it to the people is very important, because many of the people don't really have the time or the capability of understanding the whole Vedanta, but certainly in a subset of that, in terms of life's goal and so on and so forth, in terms of the 8th chapter, 28 verses, is a very useful thing to do. And I would highly recommend that if you are in a position to be given some choice to assist people, that you resort to chanting the 8th chapter. Yeah. Well, I think from your comments, I'm very happy that you felt that the summary was clear and helpful. So I'm happy to know that. And with that, I take your leave. And just switching over to the Kaivalya, um, I think for the last count that I had, 47 of you have registered for it, which is a wonderful number. And I think all 40 copies that I had ordered from the ashram are now accounted for. If you still want a copy of the text, then either I can send you a PDF, which we have, because I was the co-author of this, not a co-author, but I assisted Swamiji in the transcription rather, and so on. So I have a PDF for it. I can send that to you. Or I would prefer it's just really a book in your hands, in which case I just have to get some more from the ashram. I think I had only ordered 40 and they are all taken care of. I believe I gave the last one just a couple of days ago. But if you still want a copy of that, please let me know, and there will be some delay, another week or two before we get it back from the ashram, and we should be able to do so. So out of the 40, 24 have already been mailed yesterday. I went to the post office and they requested no more than 10 or 12 because it takes 1 minute to get the full book raised. So it took like 15 minutes to do so, and they said there are a lot of other lines forming. So I did that over 2 days. Right after this class, I'm going to go to the post office, and I think I can post another 10. And the one to Kirsten and in Italy, and to Ashwin Nayak in Canada, and Suzanne Kammerer in Germany. I will probably wait for another couple of days because I have to fill out the forms, and that will be done probably on Monday. I know, Kirsten, you are here, so you can hear that. And so you will get that in the next, I think, within 10 days or so. So with that, I think everybody will have a book. We don't really need to start the book right away in the class. First few classes will be a general introduction to Upanishads. But after that, we will get into the Kaivalya. And if you already have a book and you have not registered, please do so, because I like to keep a count of who's registered and so on. So with that, I will hopefully see you next week. Very good.